Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Sri Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Mukham karoti vacharam pangom nangayate girim Yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our continuing reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is from Canto number 4, chapter 12, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. And today we're reading text number 51, correct? 51, which is the before last verse of this chapter. So text 5.1 Jnanam Ajnata Tatvaya Yo Dadyat Sat Pate Amritam Kripalor Dina Nathasya Devas Tasya Nugrinate Jnanam Ajnata Tatvaya Yo Dadyat Satpatemritam Kripalor Dinanathasya Devastasya Nugrinate Jnanam Ajnata Tatvaya Yo Dadyat Satpatemritam Kripalor Dinanathasya Devastasya Nugrinate Jnanam Ajnata Tatvaya Yo Dadyat Satpatemritam Kripalor Dinanathasya Devastasya Nugrinate Jnanam knowledge Ajnata Tatvaya to those who are unaware of the truth. Yaha one who Dadyat imparts Sat Pate on the path of truth. Amritam immortality. Kripaloho kind. Dinanathasya protector of the poor. Deva the demigods. Tasya to him. Anugrinate give blessings. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The narration of Dhruva Maharaj is sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality. Persons unaware of the absolute truth can be led to the path of truth. Those who out of transcendental kindness take on the responsibility of becoming master protectors of the poor living entities automatically gain the interest and blessings of the demigods. Kindly repeat after me. The narration of Dhruva Maharaj is sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality. Persons unaware of the absolute truth can be led to the path of truth. Those who out of transcendental kindness take on the responsibility of becoming master protectors of the poor living entities automatically gain the interest and blessings of the demigods. Purport. Jnanam Agnata means knowledge which is unknown almost throughout the entire world. No one knows actually what is the absolute truth. Materialists are very proud of their advancement in education and philosophical speculation and in scientific knowledge. But no one actually knows what the absolute truth is. The great sage Maitreya, therefore, recommends that to enlighten people about the absolute truth, tattva, devotees should preach the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the entire world. Srila Vyasadeva especially compiled this great literature of scientific knowledge because people are completely unaware of the absolute truth. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, it is said that Vyasadeva, the learned sage, compiled this great Bhagavat Purana just to stop the ignorance of the mass of people. Because people do not know the absolute truth, this Srimad Bhagavatam was specifically compiled by Vyasadeva under the instruction of Narada. Generally, even though people are interested in understanding the truth, they take to speculation and reach at most the conception of impersonal Brahman. But very few men actually know the personality of Godhead. Nate vidu swartagatim hi Vishnu. That is from Bhagavatam. Same thing being mentioned here. Nate vidu, people in general do not know swartagatim, their real interest in life, which is Vishnu or Krishna. Recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam is specifically meant to enlighten people about the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although there is no fundamental difference the association as prescribed in the Srimad Bhagavatam does not need to separately worship the demigods. The demigods are automatically pleased with him and offer Hare Krishna. As we come to the end of this chapter, Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead. The glories and the importance of the Srimad Bhagavatam is nicely described here in this verse. It is a fact that the vast majority of people in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, have very little or absolutely no knowledge of what is the absolute truth. Very few people actually endeavor, as Krishna confirms also in the Bhagavad Gita, Manushanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhayi yatatam api siddhanam kaschid mam veti tattvataha. Out of many hundreds and thousands of men, one may be inquisitive about what is knowledge or what is truth. And out of many such persons who endeavor, rare are those who actually attain the summum bonum, or the highest revelation of that absolute truth. And what is being nicely explained here, being emphasized in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, is that Srila Vyasadeva, who is the literary incarnation of Godhead, and who has been assigned to actually give opportunity for the people of Kali to know about the absolute truth, has summarized, although he has written so many, compiled so many Vedic literatures, has summarized all of this knowledge in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is described as the essence of Vedic knowledge, as the cream actually. Just like milk is very nice, but cream. Cream is even more interesting, has more potency, more energy. So this is the specialty, especially of those who are coming down in the disciplic succession of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's specialty was to further extract, further bring out the essence of what is in the Vedic literatures, of course, all centered on the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam primarily focusing on the science of Bhakti. Prabhupada nicely explains in the purport that Bhakti, anyone who performs devotional service, Bhakti is Amritam. Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. So our Goswamis have given us the cream of the cream, isn't it? By further elaborating and churning more and more this cream of Vedic knowledge in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And a personality like Dhruva Maharaj is an example of such a pure devotee of the Lord, who from a very early age took up to the wonderful teachings given to him by his spiritual master, Narada Muni. So that is also nicely explained how Krishna, he is eternally situated in his transcendental position, and therefore those who take up the process of devotional service also similarly they become deathless, even though this material body one day has to go. But by cultivation of this knowledge, one is not bewildered, one rather is dhira, learns to be dhira. Dehino sminyata dehe komaram jovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. So this is the kind of knowledge, very special knowledge, very unique knowledge, the topmost knowledge, which is only in the possession of those who are fortunate to take up the practice of devotional service. And in the purport also, Prabhupada explains how this is especially the characteristic and the quality of devotees. The Lord is known as Dinabandhu, the friend of the poor, the friend of the most fallen. Lord Chaitanya has especially exemplified this, coming in this most fallen age of Kali Yuga. And although Lord Chaitanya appeared 500 years ago, Kali Yuga continues at great speed, especially now, as we see. And we should know, as devotees, that sticking very close and taking more shelter of the recommended process given by our acharyas, given by our founder acharya, especially His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, in the matter of all of the instructions he has given, centered on the chanting of the holy name, centered on preaching this message. When people are distressed, it's a good time to preach. People become more receptive. Yeah, because people are suffering, are experiencing more and more suffering. As people's so-called liberties and independence become curtailed, as they are presently, then people who are fortunate will start to realize that I can't do what I want to do, and I'm not so free after all. I have to follow various directives, etc. Of course, the highest directive, ultimate directive, is that not even 1 second of our life we can claim as independent. We are all totally, completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord coming through in so many different ways and so many forms. And therefore, the great need, which was always in the forefront of Srila Prabhupada's mind, and which was driving his mission, how to present this knowledge, how to give this knowledge. Usually people, this is also pointed out in the purport, usually people tend to worship demigods because they need so many things. So materialistic people run after demigods for blessings. But actually demigods, when they see individuals engaged in devotional service, they become very happy, and they want to bless those persons who are actually properly situated in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because ultimately, the demigods are also agents and servants of the Lord. Sometimes they forget. But they are all agents. And when we cooperate, when we follow the injunctions given in the Shastra, when we cultivate this knowledge of the Absolute Truth, automatically we come to know the natural arrangement of nature, which is done through the different demigods. And therefore, that example also nicely given, when we water the root of the tree, then all of the different branches and twigs and trunk and everything become nourished. So it means that automatically everyone becomes satisfied, all those living entities who are helping in the overall management of this universe become satisfied and bestow their blessings upon the devotees. So this point is also made, how the Lord, because of His unlimited, unparalleled, unsurpassed qualities, is therefore very much glorified, very famous. Devotees also automatically, because they follow in the footsteps of the Lord, they become part of His, we could say, entourage. We are part of Krishna's family, and therefore devotees by nature are glorious by their performance of devotional service, and especially, which is very much the need of the hour in Kali Yuga, when they engage in activities meant to bring this understanding, meant to bring this knowledge to others who are simply increasing their suffering in the material world due to not having this knowledge. The Prabhupada makes a difference between someone who is Kripana and someone who is Brahmana. Brahmana is someone who, due to having knowledge, is eager to actually distribute, to give that knowledge. He's very broad-minded. He wants to give, whereas the opposite is there. A Kripana is someone who wants to keep things for himself, not utilize resources that he has. Sometimes people, Prabhupada would give the example, there used to be and walking around in, we say, rags, not very well dressed, but actually he has so much money, but he didn't want to spend it. Kripana, miserly persons. So the example is extended in that all of us are Kripana if we don't properly utilize the gifts given to everyone. Anyone who has attained, who has had that great fortune of attaining a human form of life, has inbuilt gifts, inbuilt abilities to become God conscious, to become devotee of Krishna, to take up the devotional service. So that verse that we quoted a little earlier, that very often Srila Prabhupada also quotes, Nate vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. Artha means gift or what is of value. The most important value in the human form of life is that we, different from anyone else in lower species, we are able to actually understand, to take steps to understand what is the most important reality of life, which is the absolute truth, which is ultimately Krishna. And unless one comes to that highest level of realization, means Bhagavat level of transcendence, Brahmiti Paramatmiti Bhagavan, Bhagavan iti sabjate. Unless one comes to that, to know about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot become freed or liberated from this material world. So very nice report here by Srila Prabhupada. And since tomorrow's verse is very short, and that as well, idam mayate bihitam kurudvaha druvasya vikyata vishuddha karmanaha hitvarvaka kridana kanimatur griham chavishnum saranam yo jagama. Translation: the transcendental activities of Dhruva Maharaj are well known all over the world, and they are very pure. In childhood, Dhruva Maharaj rejected all kinds of toys and playthings, left the protection of his mother, and seriously took shelter in the personality of Godhead, Vishnu. My dear Vidura, this is Maitreya speaking, my dear Vidura, I therefore conclude this narration, for I have described to you all its details. Purport. Said by Chandakya Pandit that life is certainly short for everyone. But if one acts properly, his reputation will remain for a generation. Follow this point. If one acts properly in this life, his reputation will remain for his lifetime. He was a good person. He's a good person. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna is everlastingly famous, so the reputation of the Lord Krishna's devotee is also everlasting, not just one generation. Therefore, in describing Dhruva Maharaj's activities, two specific words have been used. Vikyata, very famous, and Vishuddha, transcendental. Dhruva Maharaj's leaving home at a tender age and taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the forest is a unique example in this world. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. Unique example. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Here mentioned 51 sloka is purport the pure devotion service.
Beginning or at the end? End. Pure devotional service? Huh?
ಶುದ್ಧ ಹಾಗೆಯೇ ಭಗವಂತನಿಗೆ ಶುದ್ಧ ಭಕ್ತಿ ಸೇವೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಿದಾಗ ಭಗವತ್ ವೃಕ್ಷದ ಕೊಂಬೆ, ಚಿಗುರು ಮತ್ತು ಎಲೆಗಳಂತಿರುವ ದೇವತೆಗಳು ಸ್ವಾಭಾವಿಕವಾಗಿಯೇ ಭಕ್ತನಿಂದ ಸಂತೃಪ್ತರಾಗುತ್ತಾರೆ ಮತ್ತು ಅವನಿಗೆ ಸಮಸ್ತ ವರಗಳನ್ನು ನೀಡುತ್ತಾರೆ.
Yeah, the last line, huh?
ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈನ್.
So what's the question?
Which one, Guru Maharaj? The pure devotional service.
What is pure devotion?
What is a pure?
What is the pure devotional service? Pure devotional service, so many definitions are given, means without any material motivation, isn't it? Without ahaitukiya pratihata yayatma suprasidati, there are many verses. Without any tinge of material desire, totally for the yes.
What
Sometimes
are the activities?
Huh?
Is expecting that what are the activities that consist of pure devotion service?
Any activities that has those characteristics, all activities.
ఎప్పుడైనా కానీ మన లోపల ఉంటుంది కదా, నేను ఇది చేస్తే ఇది వస్తుంది, నీ ఆశ ఉంటుంది కదా, అది ఎట్లా తీయాలా మరి అది వస్తుంది కదా అని.
So
Now fine tuning his question.
we always do the desire. So how
We always do activities with a desire.
or even
We cannot extinguish or kill desire, but we have to change that desire from material, from personal motivation to to spiritual. We have to spiritualize our desire. Instead of doing something for my immediate satisfaction or pleasure, I do things for Krishna's pleasure. I do things for devotees' pleasure, to satisfy devotees, to satisfy the Lord, isn't it? To satisfy the Lord's mission. I don't do things for my selfish interest. Yeah. Any activity. Arjuna on the battlefield, because he was executing his duties as a Kshatriya. Sometimes, as a Kshatriya, one has to fight, as in the battle of Kurukshetra. That's the prime example. So, in that situation, all of his activities, because they were performed based on principles of dharma, were activities of pure devotional service. So that is why one needs to understand very clearly and very deeply the principles of dharma. All things that are performed in keeping with the laws of dharma don't incur any karmic reaction and are considered as pure devotional service. So what is performed under the guidance of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra are the three guiding principles. Then when we perform those activities for the pleasure, for the satisfaction of Krishna, then that is pure devotional service.
Yes.
Regardless of the activity. Yes.
connected to this question, like sometimes some devotees they okay, this is only my service. They restrict themselves to.
They restrict themselves. Yes.
So how to understand how can we?
How can we broaden their service? How can we help them to broaden their service? It is good that one be attached to one's service, to doing something nicely, which is authorized in the Shastra. So there are different levels of, we could say, commitment, or different levels of surrender. One who is ready to take up any activity because there is need or necessity is a more advanced devotee. We cannot force somebody to become advanced. Prabhu. It is written, right? This is our philosophy. You should do this. So that understanding has to come gradually, by it is Krishna ultimately who will help one understand that all activities which may be needed, it's like, even though one may have some inclination or ability to do something, some particular activity, but there's a need to do something else. That's why, for example, in the context of varnashram, Daiva varnashram concept accommodates this whole idea. Prabhupada would explain sometimes that some of my disciples, they're sannyasis, but they're also cleaning the room or doing many menial type of services because there's a need for that. So it doesn't take that because a sannyasi takes a broom and cleans the floor, that he's become Shudra, which generally is the activity of people who are mainly doing material, menial activities, manual activities. So one can take up any activity when it is performed, again, for the pleasure of Krishna, and when there is a need for that. So that's a higher level of understanding, which gradually will evolve, will develop as one matures in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So this morning we have a special name-giving ceremony. He's a real bhakta, eh?
Sleeping.
Bhagavatam class. Learning already how to become totally in samadhi. Practically from the beginning. You'll make a real devotee. Yeah. Yes, we have a special name for him actually. So we'll close our class now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Sri Prabhupada ki Jai.